Good evening. I've been a little sniffly all day, but I just had a couple sneezes right there as I started. So we are set up. Let's see. And if I don't fetch the latest files, which I haven't fetched today's files yet, we might be kind of okay to leave things where they were. Well, I did the webcam, so I forgot about that. And I was sneezing, which didn't help. That's why I have alarms. I'm not sure if this is going to need to be actually two things, or if maybe I do an abstraction of file system. Where did I leave things? Well, I assume it's allergies. But like I used to consider allergy season like mid-August, mid-September. But it seems the last couple of years it seemed to kind of linger on. And one of the problems with allergies is how would you know if you actually did get sick? When you're sneezing and stuffed up all the time anyway. Okay, so that is actually... I must have turned those back on to actually do something. This is still operating from that fake, and I just updated some notes. I'm not sure if I'm going to be looking at a whole lot of stuff here. Ooh, okay. Yeah, other than having these much longer lasting sniffles, which I've wondered about sometimes. I don't think I get sick very often. I mean, there was one time I just kind of felt like lying down for a few days. That's the only one I can think of recently, other than just the occasional. I can't tell if it's a cold or allergies. I mean, with all of the isolation and whatnot, I suppose colds are less likely because it's you'll be passing around less things. All right, so the interface we want. What kind of interface do we want? Yeah. That was curious. All right, so that's going to be the copy. I'm going to save our list. We're going to have the updated one here. So you're getting a log file and log file information. Let's see. What I'm doing here probably will never affect map logs. Ooh. Yeah, and I don't always even think to check the temperature. I mean, with COVID going around, I have been. Uh, Although I wonder if my old electronic thermometer is actually that great, because if anything, it's almost more worryingly cold than, or cool than anything else. I mean, it's going fairly well. I mean, it was cold and rainy Sunday, so I didn't go to the farmer's market. And thankfully, I checked the temperature early today because we had raining in the afternoon. It was still a bit chilly. Just go down to a regular grocery store. Oh, I forgot to turn off the air filter. I didn't think it would be a problem, but then I was looking back at a stream and it's like, what's that buzz? Because it's like a semi-directional mic and it is behind me. Yeah, I know when I was a kid, I would have like an annual sickness. It was like the same time of year every year. I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it might have been like nauseous because I was like it was like doing like seltzer water and crackers and other light stuff. I don't remember when that stopped. Thankfully, it did at some point. So I would want you... That's processing... Well, right now I'm processing this loop. This would have to be... iterating... my list of all known files, or list of all known logs, and checking if there were any updates there. Would that likely to ever be a date problem? The list would be updated with the new files if they hadn't updated dates. There shouldn't really be any date differences. After this, the file should be there. All right, but when a new file needs to be processed, we do kind of want to do that. So this would be, like we would do all of the older files that were not in the logs. So far, I've only been iterating them, so I haven't really had to do any direct fetching or inquiry. Knowing what I do about them, you would probably want to be doing inquiry on the list because we know that's just backed by a data structure. So would I iterate all? I want to go over all of the files in case there's things to fix there. But that's the one we can query. Well, no. These are based on an index as well. I'm not well set up to... What did I change here? Oh, that. Well, you're based on a dir, but we can do that easily at any time. Eplog server is based on... I might not have set... That's space URL. I might not have set this up to efficiently do that. The content was set up to cache, but the index was not. And of course, what we would get from the server is actually different than what we have locally now. Which I guess in a sense could be good, because it would test that something had changed. So you're just contents, so I could probably do a very, very similar thing here. You're a little bit different. You were index, but that means it's just a variable that we're using. Maplog server, extract path list. Well, we do at times have a list here with paths in it. What do we set you up with? Let's see, I don't think we go over the list of servers multiple times. Okay, so your default base URL is public map change data. So that won't quite work. If we end up doing S3, we're going to have the bucket separate from the subpath. So it would be a remote file. It would be something like this, but does file system do any caching stuff? I guess it would only be the remote ones would do that. Read. No, that when that reads, it reads. I'm thinking about doing a maplog thing backed by a file system, because then I could have that one thing do both. Maplog. That's a different maplog. Maplog cache. So that does direct dir, which I do have the ls that could maybe do that. Oh, this does some specific filtering. So that's the interface we have right now. In order to fix the mistakes back in history, I need to iterate over everything. In the normal day-to-day processing, and I guess one answer is we just have two loops, although there's enough stuff going on here, I'd rather not duplicate it. Although maybe trying to figure out how to merge these is actually going to make the whole thing kind of complicated, but we also have to I've already kind of got 2 copies with my local processing and my online processing. That would kind of make it 3. So that notes where we had updated files. If I went over the entire list, could I do one list up until a point and then switch over to the new ones? I would have to somehow record where that started and where it switched over. Or I would always use the archive files unless it was an updated file. So I'd iterate the archive. If that path was updated files, we would have to have a way to directly instantiate based on a path. So maplog cache has a base stir. That gives us a log set, which does the each, which has the its dir. What's its default dir? Cache map. No, that's the subdir. Like that's gonna be the server essentially. I think that's actually part of the path we get. Log file new is cache path, which is the joining of the things in the sub. And then you also need our master cache path. Why? Oop. File path. Oh, that's the base that it comes from. If for down here we need to get to the actual thing. So I probably still want to have like logs.log file 4, and that would get a cache path. Yeah, it would essentially be a cache path. And then in maplog server, there's a similar role. Not logs. Why not? That should be a cache path here. Base URL plus dir client.get. The path within there, but it also gets base URL. You're getting your date from the metadata of the index file. So if I fetched a file, well, I might have to start abstracting contents and path list a little bit so that I could go through and check. Like if you request a certain path, I would have to go through and check it, find the log date, and then give you that log file. And then maplog list. So it has the file system we're storing the list itself on. You might end with 2 file systems if this directly gives you files. Well, right now it's giving you kind of virtual files that just are sort of the metadata. If I wanted to have this interface directly support getting the cache copies, it would essentially have to support that operation forwarding it. And this is a slightly different paradigm than file system. File system has read and write. And it passes a block. Huh. Well, file.open not past a block might return it, but this just returns true. I'm going to say, did the file exist or not? Do I use open directly? File open, file close. Well, that's for seeds. Breakpoints. That's a line count. Yeah, I think I do. Output path, file system, objects. Process log file. Oh no, that would actually be map. Did I put? No, that's the other map. You used tiled log file.open. So yeah, we just expect to be able to do operations on that. I could probably give file system an operation for that. Of course, how much am I getting if that's the only thing I'm doing to it? Well, I'm getting an extension point that's already set up around this paradigm. Because otherwise, I would have to have some sort of map log system that did both ways. And this is file.open with two different modes. So I can't really do anything common there. I'm kind of torn here. Well, on several fronts. I like the idea that this is a representation of sort of a pure data structure. But I'm going to need an interface that can get actual files. So either I have to do yet another maplog interface that can use this and some sort of backing file store, or we add the one little operation we need on here. All right, once again, what interface do we want? I want to make it so that we look at all of these. We've already determined updated. The updated will only be from log file, but now we're iterating things that are not the master list or the new list. Right, and the point of doing this specifically here was to open it once. Because they're large files on a remote server. It seems like we would have to have some kind of knowledge about which file is where. Does my map log list? All right, it is an abstraction with 2H. We could store other data there. Where do I make these from? Indeed, we specifically have a from source operation that grabs all of its attributes. If we were copying the attributes from somewhere, we could also just note that upstream file and then say, well, hey, if we've got it, we can use it. If we don't, we'd have to have some place to get it from. Which is starting to look like this is going to be a really, really large constructor, because we're going to have like some sort of source file which we would forward open to if it was available. And we would have to have the backing store to go to if that wasn't available. Or you would have to have the backing store and also have to pass the reference to some other thing that would be able to get you there. So if we put aside the efficiency argument for a moment, I would have to pass on down some way to get the raw source. Let's see. I am fairly certain this does not need any updating. I also don't remember where I left my local files on this. Well, I guess we're still pointing at fakes, so we're still kind of in simulation mode. And we just don't update anything just yet. We shouldn't have any updated files right now. If we're going through that entire thing, I would actually expect you to have some changes. But it would fail on open. I guess the dates aren't any different? No, you should have different base and root times. Or values. Unless I have switched back to pure local processing, which isn't so different. Where did I leave you? Actually, I know it was 1.5 something. Okay, I must have switched back to my local files to process the updated stuff. Or I haven't gone back far enough. Oh no, that's already 1.6. One 6008. Okay, this must be my local, pure local version. Which would be in fair shape. What did I call this? This was... wait, that's map log. Yeah, that's where we get the run of zeros, and then the more recent stuff is correct. So I think that's where we're looking at. No. No. Final. This is where I was disabling stuff to not do all the work. So I think that means that this is up to date. Of course, now I'm also unsure. And that seemed to be a relatively consistent set. This is some of the stuff we've been trying to fix. And this is going to be long file doesn't support opening. Okay, so yes, we tried to do something there. I'm actually not sure what. Well, no, yeah, so this tried to read it. Is it tiled placement log? Yes, this tried to read it and couldn't. I don't think I recorded... It tried to update 1578, huh? Did I mistake where my problem was? One five seven eight 610 753. Okay, now I want to know why it tried to do that. Or wait, did we do this and then figure it out? Because I might have to break it into spans first. Oh yeah, you are inside of this block. Processed path, valid at. Why did you decide we needed to do that? Now that's only saying equal, but it will tell me nonetheless what that was. Oh, we've actually got some data in here. So our most recent processed log file. Log file cache valid at. Oh. And then this was. Oh, these are conditions to exit. So those did match. So cache is not valid at. I wonder if it's one of my exception things. Yeah, right at the wrong spot. I should think this can do a subdirectory. That's combined log file, which we're not doing. And that's in map log file. Oh, is this an exception? 15786. 157. At time. Well, what was the time we were processing? There's apparently a time of troubles, and then maybe I don't think I have it always reprocessing it. Yeah, there was another test of it, huh? Oh, so in the test and then in here, 787966 at time. This is the log files. It's gonna be the log files date. One 15787. Oh, this is actually, I think this might actually be something that I did see when I uploaded it, and I have not So I uploaded that one file that had all of the other timestamps, and it corrected a few things within that 2 week period. It may have been some of that stuff too. Oh, now we are using the log file dates from here. In which case I have to go back, and since I've kind of started looking at this loop, I was thinking, okay, we make this abstract interface before we can use it, but I've sort of booted myself into this problem. So this is, let's see, log file time. Where were we? App log file in general. Is this file valid at such and such time? Because it was originally cache. No. If we known to have processed it and the time we processed it, this is basically doing is the processing time later than the file time? Which 15787, 1578, yeah, 86. So I downloaded my local file after is that right? After it was processed, oh, because yeah, I downloaded. This is the mixed mode one, so it's like my local file list versus the online files. And if I run this from the local file list, it's going to update the dates because it'll see that they're newer. Or wait, because I did upload this list. But the timestamps didn't matter then because we weren't really using them for that. I could attempt to figure out what? The original timestamps of the raw files versus the times I downloaded them at, although if I ever ran it on my local copy, it would attempt to update them. So we're also using that. That's kind of a double use of the file date, maybe. if I captured the processed times, it'd be, in a sense, inaccurate. But those times will be newer than the files. That would make it not reprocess everything just because of date. And in most cases, we're not replacing files. Maybe I would let it modify it to reprocess the last one just in case. Well, I guess if I did process time and there was a newer file, that might still work out. I kind of don't like falsifying data, so to speak. Well, this is going to redo a whole bunch of stuff. Possibly like everything since I uploaded from my local directories to the online. Just because I'm usually going to have fetched the file later than the online system did. So the issue is I'm using local file timestamps which appear later than the times we processed them. Well, the processed times can't be older than the... Well, it'd be closer to the original file times than my local file times. For my index... Actually, I set that up from, because it's local files, I set that up from local file times. I could use the times from the original indexes, maybe. Although I don't have that for all of the files at this point. Yeah, that would work for the archives, but not for the rolling window that's fallen off. So I don't think I can even get back to the original published times. Online processing actually won't be too far off of that. So processed at time. I haven't really gone any trouble to privatize anything. But if I roll the file stamps, let's see, if I roll the file stamps back, then the thing that's updating files is going to say, oh, hey, this here file is newer than that. And what our index is, and I guess if it recopies it from file system to file system, that won't hurt. But then it will have the file system timestamp again. And if we ever run it against the entire collection, it will have those timestamps again. Which will be kind of the normal course of things. Well, maybe I set this up so it runs as the runs copy. So I would be in for a large bout of reprocessing everything just based on file stamps, file timestamps. So part of the issue is that I am mixing my files. I'm trying to use the files from the live system because it has the messed up data. And then I'm referencing my local files, which were downloaded later. Would I want to do something to disable timestamp checks for local development of that state? And I technically am asking the log file if it's invalid. The thing we're trying to fix up right now is actually root time base time. But this is in general the thing that tells us, hey, this file updated. I'm actually starting to wonder if I should be using this in my other process, where I'm saying, hey, does this thing need to be updated? Which, in fact, we had some issues with precision on that, although I would have to sort of pre-do the timestamp conversion on the incoming file. Do we otherwise grab timestamp of the file? Well, yeah, that's not right. And then date is a thing that gets gotten specifically from each file. So I'd have to do some kind of like duck checking to say, well, was this thing a log file? If so, ask it for its date. Otherwise, we're just going to use it as is, and that seems a little fishy. Epilogue list. Update from. We're using date and +1. Well, this does know about log files. Is that the right check here? And if I start monkeying with it, would that still be the right check? There are some special exceptions where we had some issues. See, this is a greater than, this is a less than or equal to, this is source file. So actually, I think that if I reversed the positions, it would say if log file cache valid at, it would be date.2i. And we would update information. Right, does that make sense? This is saying that time is only valid between, right? Was this supposed to be some sort of... Am I missing a negation here? Let's see. Some of these had returned true. And it's like it would always have to be returning true. Oh. This only gets processed... Yeah, this is one of the problems with these short circuit things. If this is less than, we never process this. No, because it's an and. If that's not true, we never process that. If it is true, 1571. That's the at time. How? Are there overrides of this? Okay, that's the meta one. That was clearly returning true for something. First is less than second. 1577, 1578, and time is... Oh no, this is an exclusion. It is normally written inside. This is timeline format. So if it's greater than that or less than that, and the period between these two is invalid. What was I... Well, I think I can return to later. Would... well, if I did this, it would be a log file cache valid at, source file date. And then I'm talking about changing the definition of this for log file in certain circumstances to solve this problem. Let's see, would this be helped? No, because I don't think that the extra processing that happened on the server would be a difference because I wasn't using the file list timestamps then. I'm also not sure there's another good thing to work on now if I want to think about that. There's this bit, but I kind of wanted that loop going so to think about what kind of interface we needed. I'm not sure I can test with this. It's like I either need to do something to set up this situation on some copy of my local data. Wait a minute. Maybe those are legitimate resets. Yeah, those are probably legitimate resets. And then wasn't it 16? That was probably like 1618 or something. Or 008 maybe? Yeah. To set that up in my local data so that I could use those timestamps. Or, since this is kind of my simulation data, since I'm not actually writing anything out right now, would it matter if it just went through and updated the index files? Well, it's still going to do a whole lot of crunching on it. Well, no, actually, it updates this, comes down here. Ah. That updates the time processed. Well, no, that updates base and root, and then this is spans, which have their own issues. Processed. Start. Which is wrong here? Well, okay. So this has both. This is both the spans we processed and the spans file, which is also going to be having issues. I have to do the tile break to get the span breaks. If I only do this, we update our processed time, and it would write the root time base time with the fixed data and then not see it as needing to be fixed. It's like, could I just update the timestamps? I might be able to arrange something that temporarily did not update these. Well, this is a whole rewrite. So maybe it's actually just this use of that method I should turn off for a while? So we don't care about whether it's a newer file while we're working on the root time base time problem. I'm still going to need a process to update my file list at the master level, though, because that's going to have my local file times. What times we need to put in there? I might have to kind of dummy it up with the processing times. My emulation of the recent files will still have some of that problem. I wonder if I just have to let it do a really, really large amount of work. Or I set up some kind of process that just goes through and invalidates all the processed times to, like, now. It becomes an inaccurate record. But that would only be an issue for files that were actually updated after the fact. I've not been really watching closely lately. So no indication that the current files have the zero size problem. Where it gets updated with new data later. So I would need some sort of special process and a special task that would go through and update the process times of all files to be the time of the base file, at least. Some sort of, like, catch-up operation. If we're running that on our list, the list would have all the files with our local file times, which will generally be later than the online file times. So that would just kind of bump everything up a little bit. It's either that or I do a one-time process to copy these zeros over or something. A task to do catch-up seems a little bit more reusable. And it's something... Here, I could maybe build it into this loop. For the online one, I might need to build a special task for it. Because it'll basically just come down to calling a different method on here. Oh, that's going to affect map logs too, because it still should be file dates. So this gives us a reason that we can skip that. A catch-up operation would only update it if it was there. Log file, not really going to need options for that. Am I doing base time? No, this is just log file dot. Base time is what we... Yeah, that's not related to this. So this is just a... So if it exists and the cache is not valid at, we would know it exists, we would update the root time. And do we checkpoint everything? Yeah, checkpoint. That's going to write the spans and the process, but we haven't done anything to them that won't really hurt it. We don't technically need to checkpoint after every single iteration here, but it would kind of expose too much of the internals if we didn't. That's actually way too much. I can call it catch-up, that's kind of vague. Don't need you. We would only do something if that existed. And then it's an if not. Time equals, well, we don't necessarily want time.to now. So the catch here is, we don't necessarily need to say it was done now. We just need to catch it up to the log file, which now we're breaking the abstraction. Well, I guess there's that one exclusion period on it. And unless this is one of the things that shows up on upper level versions. Yeah, they have ways to provide date. I could rewrite that to do this unless that, but these are longish statements. I guess I only need to write this if this was updated. So that might save a few file writes. That's not normally a big deal because we're doing this as part of a big batch processing job. This is going to be kind of an annoying number of writes if it's going to S3. But I would have to have this either controlling the loop or the outer loop would have to be calling checkpoint, which I don't like. And that's all that does. I guess this is kind of a separate thing. And we have to come back and do that for map logs, and then we have to set up some... Does that matter yet? Or could we write that yet? I think we already implemented map log list over there. Yeah, I'd have to do a library update on it. This is something we have to take a note. Yeah, task is the right word. So you won't need to be opening anything. You shouldn't need to be opening anything. Oh, I still had some debugging in there. Oh, who are you? Who are you that's doing an updated file? Oh. Okay. Maybe we do have a new file from some stuff we did. Interesting. I may have to... Oh, I probably downloaded a local file today. And that maybe doesn't exist in my little fake copy. Yeah, I downloaded a new file which wasn't in the online thing that I copied the other day. Yeah, so we just skip that until, which also isn't going to be my fake data? Yes. I think that should have done that though. Well, maybe it didn't fix up all of them because of that. Okay, and that was maplog file. Don't need the debugging anymore. So I don't think you need to be reading anything. No. Okay, so this is a difference there. Although this is... Nope, yep, there's a root time that's right around our breakpoints. That probably is what we're actually looking for. While we're working on this, you also need to have a timestamp fix-up. You might not have been as... Yeah, you only did the valid check and had relatively less stuff here. Nah. That doesn't let me put... This is probably going to be really similar. Process, log file path, log file cache, field called time. Just in case we should need to run you. All right, so this has been date drift, which means there is a file that needs to get copied there. It's one of the more recent files we hope to take care of. And when we ran this with the full index, we saw things that were trying to fix themselves, but we don't have any way to get the file data. All right, so that was a little thing we needed. Okay, so that was maplog server. That was the only one we really care about the caching on. That's still debugging, which we hadn't been hitting. Well, I guess that in and of itself is sort of useful for what we're currently doing. That's temporary debugging. All right, this is in its own chunk. This is the only thing in this file right now. That's still testing stuff. That's kind of still testing stuff. That was a little fix-up. That was a little fix-up. It's like, these are new. I don't normally run those. Yeah, already did that. Too many junk files. So we're iterating through. We get to here. We want to read data to update, and there is no data there. It would be kind of nice if that just worked, but how much stuff do we have to do to maplog lists to give it the ability to do that? It was kind of nice to have it as sort of a pure virtual file system thing. But we've got access to a source file, and for those new files, that's exactly what we want. And then for the archival files, The interface we've got is that we need a file handle. So that builds off source file. No, I don't have a current map log system that goes off of S3. I was wondering, since I'm going to local files, could I give it, sort of make a log instance? Well, I need to be able to browse this all the way down because we have to say, I need to get you to the same server instance, server directory, and then to the same file. Although these things have the ability to make complete paths, or the ones that deal with that. Now you've got a subpath, you've got a cache path. You get cache path, which is your subdir logs, which is going to be big server 2, onehourlonelife.com. So one way to swing this interface is that we add methods to here to be able to say, hey, I know I'm big server 2, I know I'm this file, which to a certain extent, it's, there's your complete path. Which I guess that's what we have here. So that's, you might be able to go straight to log file there. Maybe through that interface somewhere. No, well, that's straight to there. But this is an instance of that dir. Yeah, log file of that path might work. And I could build that with the local file system there. It's got almost everything we need. And then that would be just another log file instance. You could go to that thing to do your open, if we can set it up properly. But if we do that, we have to make a instance of maplog iteration that works on, or most of maplog anyway, that works on S3. Which, I guess the raw APIs there aren't too bad. Actually, yeah, this is, well, yeah. And then the other way to do it is I build that open ability for these files directly into maplog list. And I give it a file system object, which file systems would then have to be extended with a new method to give me an IO stream, which in this case, I believe would have to be, I have to wrap a string IO around it. Which is probably a lot like what happens with maplog server. When we open, we get the contents and wrap a string IO around it. Which could also have something to do why that processing seems slower on the remote server because it's actually having to download the entire thing first. So I either need a version of MapLogs that works on S3, or I need to extend this one with just the ability to use whichever file system. So this is still going to be built on something else. It would still have to be sort of aware of whether... So this is going to have... This has some sort of like load from... File system list path, checkpoint, update from... How did I load you? Yeah, okay, so this is lazy loading it. Log file.new with all these parameters. So that would by default have some way to get to that remote loadable backing store. And that's either going to look like, I think probably no matter what, if it's a current file, we will take that object. Oh, it's not the same object. This is a separate iteration. So it did take that. So this was using a separate iteration, but that it's just an index file. I think I actually wasn't caching that before. Now it's the in-memory list, so that part will be okay. But if we run through you up here, and to get this right, we have to run through it separately. Then the source file reference we have at this time will not be the same thing we're going to get here, because we build a new one each time we loop. And in part that's intentional, so that we build it up, reuse it if it's reused, and then it goes out of scope and can be garbage collected. This is going to represent a large file. The stuff we're doing up above isn't going to fetch full content, so that's not as much of a concern. Well, it might fetch contents of seeds, but those are small. If we keep around a reference to that file, it's not going to be the same fetch as we do down here. So capturing it there is not going to do it for us. Or would it? Because that updates from there. Okay, then when we got here and asked this thing to open, it would reference that copy, but it would not then throw it out because these are references into our local data structure. So it would only be one fetch, but it would not necessarily be able to garbage collect all of that data. Unless I added some kind of explicit cleanup method for that, which would have to go down the levels. Oh. So there's one possible reason to write a S3 maplog abstraction, assuming we can solve those other problems. The file system doesn't include any of the content caching. Although I guess maybe the maplog list could do that. So would I then have to have some sort of extended field on these log files? I don't like doing specific things like that. Does it only work with that object then? Or you have to add a dummy method to all the others? That can track, it's like, well, was this a file from upstream or was it not? Or was it one of the recently available ones? If I went through all of my map logs, maplog server being kind of the significant one, see, I would have a logs object at this point, and set this up so that we abstracted over this, and there was also an operation. Well, I guess maplog server doesn't involve network, so it wouldn't be as terrible to redo that every time. Have it remember its list of files. So that then we could ask it, hey, do you have this? And the local file one would just go look at the file system and see if it does. Maplog list would presumably have to have that for kind of interface compatibility. And indeed, if we called that method on, well, we're already iterating it on here. I made a little object for this. Because of the seeds, I wouldn't necessarily want to always return a reference to one or the other. Because I can answer the seed queries much more efficiently. And that was kind of the point of doing this. We have the seeds available without going and fetching files, or originally even having the files, but now we have to get the full content. So having that fetch this specific file might not work for that. If the maplog interface supports get this specific file, would we want to build that into U? Or would we actually come through and say, okay, we know this is an index. When we get down to processing it, do we say, okay, I'm going to try to get my current files, and failing that, I'm going to try to get my archive files. Okay, so there's a weird thing there, where if we did a S3 back maplog, we're kind of counting on maplog lists to be our index for that. Although I guess it is possible to do that as an index stage. But we're pretty much expecting to make a blind request to that, counting on it to exist. The online list of current files is actually going to be a hey, do you have this? Now, that logic is going to happen somewhere. Since this loop kind of gets repeated in the two different versions, it'd be kind of nice to have it out of there. I guess that would give you some more freedom in, or to have that top level loop configuring how it does that. Yeah, I think mine might be about to tap out too. We kind of end up with something where we replace it. And we would have to have mystery object that would get our archives. And maybe I should rename it at that point. Maybe have this log file be the different name so that all the other stuff can stay the same. But if all of our maplog things could answer that question, and if they could then get a specific file, it would depend on whatever we did here. And I'll just have to be able to say what our backing thing is. Now, we've already got a file system that we're updating these things to, which I guess would be one nice thing about backing it with a file system is that we would already have said, well, there's a subdirectory within there. The nice thing about basing on a file system is that we would configure that store once up front. Then you would say, okay, yeah, and then in this public maplog directory of that file system is where all of our stuff's going to be. I would need to have some kind of open method on all of those things. I guess the only thing I really get out of that is that for local files, we might be able to stream it. All the remote stuff is pretty much download and then wrap an IO stream around it. Maybe there would be different networking libraries that could handle the streaming. I don't even know if I looked at S3. Yeah, and this thing would be like copying to itself, so that would be weird. Yeah, actually that single open thing is going to be awkward there. Because this was written assuming we were iterating just that. But almost have to do... Like we only check it when that's true. Yeah, so we kind of have something like this, and it's... Do we have it here? Or the loop controls that? Do we bury it in maplog list? And then I have to pass around a bunch of extra arguments for that to manage all its different sources of things? something is going to have that fetch the archive file, which is that would be like, well, I say one method on maplog list, but I'd also have to pass around all of the information and paths and buckets and whatnot to get there. We're still kind of stuck on this. We sort of did that by adding this fix-up task. So we're going to have to be careful with how that all works. My file index was built for my local files, so we're going to have to like update all of those times to account for those processing times. So there might be some delicate ordering of that. So we need to have both of those things. Our issues are top loop versus abstracted by maplog list. S3 maplog object versus a file system object wrapper. Actually, it looks like, for what I was seeing from these runs, this might take care of itself once we fix up the timestamps properly. And then we sort of have this issue. We have to be very, very careful about the file copies as we manipulate the log file objects. If we start replacing things and swapping it out, then it's not going to be quite the same thing anymore. We were iterating the new files. Now we're trying to iterate all the files to be able to fix stuff up. So we either need some special case for when we are processing a newly updated file to co-copy it, or it has to be like, well, I'm trying to avoid a separate loop. So that might have to be some kind of conditional thing. If we're doing the file copying, maybe that biases it towards being the top loop. I was kind of thinking that since this is like a file system write, and maplog list has its own checkpoint, which is a file system write. If we assumed that the archive and the place we're keeping the index are the same place, then that would kind of condense down one reference to where we're storing things. Typical scenario. One thing I might want to do is keep them separate enough that they could be separate places. But that's a vote for that version of it. Probably the copy management is a vote for top loop. Because if we're like abstracting the open on that, we might kind of lose sight of the ability to copy those easily or properly. Well, I was hoping to actually get at least a local interface set up here. We did come up with a solution to some of the timestamp issues. I still have to figure out how much of my loop there I need to write a timestamp fix-up task for the online processor. Because that seems like something I might have to do again if there's any other little fix-ups going on. But I think my brain needs to tap out too. So thanks to the support. Let's see. Don't know I'm going to have any code on. This is like way past when I'm usually doing stuff. That's when I'm usually on. This is still unusual times. I've just been bugged by the fact that this is broken. And I really thought it would be easier to fix, but so it goes. Yeah, not a whole lot of coding streams. Let's see, so that... Mm-hmm. Hmm. Well, I see some oxygen not included. That can sometimes get into programming like problems and solutions, or figuring out systems, refactoring things. If you're looking for someplace cool to hang out, Deathly Smiles is playing some oxygen not included. That's someplace cool to hang out. Thanks for hanging out with me. Good night, and until next time.